Congressional Democrats are already planting the seeds to take back Congress in 2026, beginning with a new leadership appointment. Democratic Congresswoman Susie Lee of Nevada was elected to serve as Battleground leadership representative this week. The position, which Lee created in 2022, is designed to make sure Democrats in the most competitive districts have a say in crucial party decisions, which I think is critically important, including how Democrats should fight back. Oh, there's a good word, during Trump's second term. And Congresswoman Susie Lee joins us here at the table now. We're so glad to have you here, Congresswoman.
Oh, great to be here with you.
It's great to see you, Congresswoman. I spoke to Secretary Buttigieg on Thursday, and we talked about the Department of Transportation, but I also got his take on how he thinks Democrats should move forward. And I want to play for you what he said. Take a listen.
The point of all of this is to make somebody's everyday life better. And that's true whether we're talking about literal bread and butter issues, and by literal, I mean, agriculture policy, or whether we're talking about what is classed as social issues, but the reason it actually matters. What all of those different things have in common is they're about everyday life and how it gets better or it gets worse based on the decisions that people in big white buildings in Washington, D.C., and much closer to home in City Hall, and everywhere in between, make. And we have to orient our practice around that. Our rhetoric, of course, but also our work.
I'm wondering what you think about that. I mean, you represent Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. I know that you have been in conversation with many members across the spectrum within the caucus just about how you all can win. Because Democrats have good ideas, but those good ideas mean nothing if you're not elected and can implement them.
Absolutely. First and foremost, we need to quit talking just to ourselves and understand that people on the ground, our constituents, are struggling. And that is really what came to light in this election. It was really about, we have issues that are urgent. Those are your bread and butter every day, paying your rent, buying groceries, making sure that paycheck lasts a full month. And then you have issues that are important, your freedom to choose, our democracy. Those are important issues, but people really made it known at the ballot box that urgent was the issue they were voting with this year.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
I'm just so struck by the fact that we're having this conversation nationally, but it's certainly one that is also playing out in Nevada. I think everyone knew at some point the Reid juggernaut was going to need to be revisited and reimagined. I want to read you this from NBC News. Democrats just suffered a bruising defeat at the presidential level in Nevada for the first time in 20 years, fueled by a swing toward Republicans among working class voters. While Democrats' presidential nominee lost, Senator Jackie Rosen won re-election, and Democrats in all 3 closely divided Las Vegas area House districts won. Democrats also held their ground in the state legislature, falling just shy of supermajorities. What do you think the lesson is for national Democrats out of Nevada?
Listen, I think it is that, not only do we need to turn out our base, but we need to be on the ground having those important conversations with people in the middle. Nevada, at least in my district, the plurality of voters are nonpartisan or independents. They are people who voted for Trump, some of them, but also voted for me. So it's not just about making sure we're doing our get out the vote to our base, but also having those important conversations to those people in the middle who don't watch MSNBC or CNN every single day, who are literally busy trying to get their kids to school, take care of their parents, pay their bills, grocery shop. Making sure we're having those important conversations is really going to be part of how we move forward. And I'll just say this, the Reid machine, people say, is broken. I'm not necessarily sure about that. I just think that, one, the proof is in the pudding that down ballot Democrats won despite the top of the ticket not winning. But again, I think the lesson we should take out of this is get busy and listen to people and have those conversations and make sure we're engaging not just in September and October of the election year.
So I want to go back to a part of your answer from before. You were talking about paying rent, buying groceries.
everyday stuff, kitchen table stuff. And I raise that in contrast to what our buddy Congressman Rankin said in response to the DOJ committee, this sort of made-up farcical thing that, we're going to create a bureaucracy to get rid of bureaucracy from the Trump administration. He noted Democrats will stay focused on waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption. The government belongs to the people, not the billionaire oligarchs. So as folks out there, when they hear a member talking about waste, fraud, and abuse, what do you think they think? I mean, do you really think the country is sitting there focused on waste, fraud, and abuse? Or are they focused on paying their rent, buying the groceries, putting gas in the tank? That's what undid this administration. That's what undid this presidential bid, in combination with cultural issues around transgender rights, around critical race theory, and also race-related issues that infused those elements in a way that became toxic for Democrats, that cleaved off parts of their base with young Black and Hispanic men, for example. So is it waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption? Or is it, hey, I know what it costs to put a loaf of bread on the table so you can make sandwiches every day for your kids' lunch. So let's talk about that.
I think it's really, when you look at the majority of Americans, especially given the results of this election, this was a change election. And when they think of waste, fraud, and abuse, they're looking at government's not working for me. The wealth is being concentrated in the top 1% who have more wealth than the bottom 90% of Americans, than the entire middle class of America. And I still can't pay my rent and buy groceries and pay gas and, take care of things with my paycheck. And that was the referendum that was on the ballot. Vice President Harris ran a great campaign. It was virtually impossible for her to distance herself from the Biden administration. And people basically, when I spent the last 3 weeks of my campaign calling undecided voters, and what I heard over and over and over again was that my life was better 4 years ago than it is today. And you can't just meet that by saying, but, this is the reason why inflation is up. This is the reason why the cost of housing is up, and place blame on the previous administration. They don't really care. They just want it to get better.
Right.
And that's really what this election was about. Basically, they might not agree with everything coming out of President-elect Trump's mouth, but they have a belief that, listen, what happened these last 4 years didn't work for me. I'm going to give this guy a try.
So then what is the strategy then for House Democrats along those lines? Because I think if you talk, you're right. Talking to people, that's what they say. They say it was better before. And it's like, okay, but these, and they're like, okay, yes, it was better before. And I don't think they heard enough about how it will get. I think it's not just the last 105 days before this election. There was a whole year and a half, 2 years, frankly, where Democrats across the board were like, look, inflation is down, it's coming down, GDP, record GDP growth, fastest recovery. And people are like, yes, but the rent is still too damn high. So I think that it's more of that and less of what Vice President Harris did in the 105 days. Given that, are Democrats talking about putting together some legislation? Obviously, you're in the minority, but I do think that if you want to distinguish yourselves, you're going to have to put forward some stuff. So is there a housing bill that you're going to take back up that didn't pass in this last Congress? Is there something you're going to put forward on price gouging to force your Republican colleagues' hands? And if they won't come to the table on it, well, now it's the Democrats that are putting forward doing something about people's issues and not the Republicans.
That's probably the most frustrating thing about where we are right now is we did put together policies. We did bring down the cost of prescription drugs. Kamala Harris did have a housing policy proposal to help people with mortgages, to build more affordable housing, the Inflation Reduction Act, like all of those things that we put into place, unfortunately has a time lag. And what's probably most frustrating is a lot of the benefits, unless all of them get repealed immediately, which is probably on the docket, but the benefits benefits from those people will actually start to see them in their pockets, especially with prescription drugs starting January 1st of 2025. So yes, Democrats have had policies. We will continue to fight to go after price gouging, et cetera. We're in the minority, but we're going to keep on working on what we're going to do to help bring down the costs for the American people.
Congresswoman Susie Lee, you are just great. We hope to have you back at the table again to keep us abreast of what's going on.